Okay, we can go ahead and get started. Again, thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Kimberly Williams. I am an Outreach and Recruitment Officer with the Fulbright U.S. Scholar Program, and I'm joined by my colleague, Susan Mundo, who is the Assistant Director of the Multi-Regional Programs with the Fulbright Student and Scholar Programs. And today we're going to be discussing the Fulbright Public Policy Fellowship. So before I get started, I do want to point out a couple of things. So this webinar will be recorded and archived to our website. So if for some reason you do have to leave early, or if you have a colleague that's interested, this will be available to view later. We'll also answer any questions that you may have towards the end of the presentation. But in the meantime, feel free to type your questions in the Q&A box and we will answer at the end. So I'm going to move forward and get started. So before we get into what the program is, I would like to give a brief mission and history of the Fulbright program. Established in 1946 by Congress, Fulbright is a cultural exchange program that is sponsored by the U.S. Department of State. And in partnership with over 160 countries worldwide, we provide professionals, administrators, and faculty from various backgrounds opportunities to study, teach, and/or conduct research abroad. Something exciting about Fulbright is this year, we are celebrating our 75th anniversary, so you may have seen on our website or received emails that are announcing our 75th. And we do encourage you to attend any of the events that you're receiving emails about. And something that you're going to hear pretty frequently throughout your interactions with Fulbright is going to be our mission, which is to foster mutual understanding between nations, advance knowledge across communities, and improve lives around the world. And we also like to say this is the heart of Fulbright. Diversity and inclusion. So diversity and inclusion are at the forefront of our mission. We are actively recruiting a diverse pool of applicants from various academic institutions and organizations. I would like to point out that opportunities are open to people regardless of their race, color, national origin, sex, age, religion, geographic location, socioeconomic status, disability, sexual orientation, and gender identity. So what is the Fulbright Public Policy Fellowship? So the fellowship provides opportunities for U.S. early and mid-career professionals and practitioners to serve in placements in foreign government ministries around the world. So I would like to point out that applicants do not have to contact host ministries to organize or advocate for placements. With our Fulbright Scholar Program, applicants do reach out to institutions to try to secure affiliation, but that is not required for this particular program. So as a fellow, you're going to serve as a technical specialist in a foreign government. And 80% of your time is going to be spent really immersing yourselves in different assignments that are going to be at the supervision of the host government official. Also, there's going to be a self-directed independent research project that you're going to spend about 20% of your time. And so with this research project, it's going to be at your choosing what the project is going to be surrounding and involved with. The fellowship itself is going to be between 4 to 9 months, and it's going to depend on the particular country that you're interested in. And there are approximately 10 globally awards, 10 global awards, and that's going to be about 2 awards for each country. Moving forward, let's talk through eligibility. So some of the basic eligibility is going to be U.S. citizenship at the time of your application. Again, each country is going to have different requirements in terms of the types of, let's say, disciplines they're looking for, but my colleague Susan is going to go into that a little more detail when she walks you through the different countries that are options. Our desired qualifications are going to be a graduate degree in a public policy related field, for example, a JD, MPA, or MPH, 3 to 5 years of public policy related experience, and your language skills are going to be dependent upon the country. And so at this time, Susan is going to go through each of our participating countries and the eligible disciplines.
Great, thanks, Kim. So the Public Policy Fellowship is really unique within the U.S. Scholar Program. And Kim touched on this earlier, where the applicants are actually placed by the Fulbright Commission or the U.S. Embassy in the host country at a government ministry. The current participating countries for the 22 to 23 competition include Peru, Cote d'Ivoire, Burma, and Ukraine. So I will talk about each individual country a little bit separately. The first one we have is Peru. And in Peru, they're looking for specific fields that cover combating gender-based violence, social inclusion, anti-corruption, equality, integration, sustainability, identity, and diversity. And some of the potential host ministries include the Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Tourism, Ministry of Education. I won't go through all of them. They're listed here also on our website. But these are just examples of ministries that have either participated in the past, have expressed an interest in participating in the program and hosting a U.S. public policy expert, or are also determined by the goals of the mission, the foreign policy goals of the U.S. mission in Peru. So these are, sort of how these particular ministries and focus areas have come to participate in the competition for 22 to 23. For Peru, advanced Spanish language proficiency is required. We can move on to the next country. So Burma, I will point out that although the Fulbright Public Policy Program in Burma is currently closed, we are accepting applications for the 22 to 23 academic year. Because of the unique placements of Fulbright Public Policy Fellows in government ministries, placing fellows in Burma is not possible at this time, but applicants should keep in mind that unless the in-country situation improves, the program in Burma will remain closed. So if you're interested in Burma, you should check back on the catalog of awards as we continue to monitor the situation in country, or consider an alternative country within the public policy fellowship. The fields that are specifically of interest in Burma include economics, economic development, public administration, public global health, education, environmental science, environmental policy, political science, agriculture, energy, drug issues, policy on rehabilitation of drug users, cyber crimes and cybersecurity, and media. For the language skills, it is not necessary, it's not required, but certainly helpful. Fellows communicating in English are strongly encouraged to use simple, clear English spoken slowly with their counterparts. Cote d'Ivoire. Cote d'Ivoire French language, advanced French proficiency is required for Cote d'Ivoire. Ministries that are potential placements include the Ministry of Security, in sector reform, environment and sustainable development, customs reorganization, justice and human rights, construction and urban planning, commerce and industry and entrepreneurship. Sorry, those are the fields that are of specific interest. And potential host ministries can include Ministry of Water and Forest, National Security Council, Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development, Ministry of Justice, Human Rights, Construction, Housing and Urbanization, Administration of Territory and Decentralization, Commerce and Industry, and Private Sector Promotion. And the final country that is participating this year is Ukraine. In Ukraine, the potential host ministries include the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Social Policy, Education, Ministry of European and Euro-Atlantic Integration, Ministry of Veterans Affairs, temporarily occupied territories and internally displaced persons of Ukraine. For language skills, the level of Ukrainian depends on the ministry. There is a preference for basic level of Ukrainian or Russian language skills, and others work in English on a regular basis. So if you do have a level of Ukrainian or Russian, you're encouraged to include that in your self-evaluation within the application. Okay, so moving on to the application components. The application is completed fully online. There are basic background questions, profile, and then specific to this fellowship is a few essay questions, which I'll get into on the next slide. Your curriculum vitae or resume, letters of reference, a select bibliography, and the language proficiency report depending on the country. It is required for both Cote d'Ivoire and for Peru that have an advanced language proficiency requirement. So the essay questions, this is actually new for this year. We've modified the application so that instead of uploading a 5-page project statement, which we've done in the past and which is required for the core Fulbright US Scholar applications, we've divided the sort of main essay into 4 specific questions. The first is to address your experience and skills, what knowledge and experience you bring to the fellowship, including any specific strengths which make you suitable to the position. Career trajectory, and in this case, what's the trajectory you have followed, what are your plans for the future, and how does the Public Policy Fellowship fit into your career path and your future goals? Next essay question addresses the country selection and preparation. So why have you selected the particular country, and how are you prepared to fulfill your project in that country? And then finally, your research proposal. So as Kim mentioned earlier, about 20% of your time will be spent on an independent research project that you design. And in this essay, we're asking you to address what you're proposing to do, stating clearly your methodology, the nature of your research, and how it would benefit the country in which you're proposing to pursue the fellowship.
Thank you, Susan. So next we're going to walk through the application timeline. So the application is currently open and the application deadline is going to be September 15th of this year. So between November and December of this year, we are going to hold our peer review committee, which is going to be a panel that's closely related to public policy, and they're going to review all of the components of your application and then make recommendations for further consideration by U.S. embassies or Fulbright commissions abroad. December of 2021, that's when the U.S. embassies or commissions will review the applications, and they will consult with host government ministries on candidates. There will be an interview process that will be held virtually. January of 2022, recommended candidates are going to be reviewed by the Fulbright Foreign Scholarship Board for approval. Between February and March of 2022, scholar selections will be announced following U.S. Embassy host ministry placement negotiations. July of next year will be your pre-departure orientation, and between July 2022 and March 2023, that is when scholars will depart for their host ministries. So at this time, I'm going to do a guided tour of the website, catalog, and just walk you through different resources that we have available on the website. So if you can bear with me while I just toggle back and forth and stop sharing for a minute. I'm going to share my screen so I can walk you through the website. So one moment. And again, for those of you that joined us late, please feel free to type your questions in the Q&A box, and we will answer your questions towards the end. So right here, I am on our website, our homepage of CIES.org. So for the Fulbright Public Policy Fellowship, you'll simply scroll down. Under U.S. Scholars, you will see a link for the Fulbright Public Policy Fellowship. So here you'll see the different tabs at the top. So under the Overview tab, you'll get a general overview of the program, which is what we discussed today, the purpose of the program. If you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see the participating countries and eligible disciplines. So Susan went over them. You can see them all in detail here. Continuing to scroll down, just additional information about the grant details, such as the grant duration, deadline, different types of resources. If you ever have any general questions, or let's say you would like to know if you're a good fit for the program, you can always send me your CV or resume I can review at fppf@iie.org. So I'm going to scroll back up to the next tab of eligibility, which is simply going to take you to another eligibility page. But again, we talked about it in the presentation, at least the 3 to 5 years of public policy related experience. But if you would like more information, you can simply click this link and it will take you there. Under the application tab, to start the process of the application, you can simply click the link here. And so you will have to create a login. It's just creating a username, password, so that you can easily access your application when need be. Again, scrolling down, you'll see the different application components. So you have the essay questions. So it's my recommendation, it could be helpful to just copy and paste the questions in the Word doc so that you can complete them at your leisure. And of course, there's going to be your CV and resume. And so if you scroll down just a tad, you'll see the formatting requirements, which is going to be essential when you prepare to upload your CV or resume in your application. So I'm going to scroll back up. Review criteria. This is going to give you an overview of what reviewers are taking into account and consideration when they are reviewing your application. Timeline we just discussed, but here it is in more detail. And highlights. So this is a great section if you'd like more information about prior fellows. As you can see, these are our Fulbright fellows from the 2019-2020 year. And so as you can see, they come from a variety of backgrounds. We have fellows from the various countries. So I'm going to scroll back up. And then finally,
actually, sorry, that's the countries that they pursued their fellowship in.
Okay. So I'll come back to the highlights tab and show you something interesting if you'd like to get a little more information about the different fellows. But for now, we're going to go to the FAQs, which is a great section. So let's say you have questions after hours and you're unable to reach someone. We do have a lot of extensive FAQs that will help you kind of walk through some of our commonly asked questions. So I encourage everyone to take a look here if you do have any questions. So next I'm going to take you to our awards catalog, and you can get a different view of the information that you just saw, and you would simply go to awards.cies.org. And so I happen to select the Cote d'Ivoire as the country. As you know, you do have 4 program options. So when you select that as your country and you select Search Awards, you will see the Public Policy Fellowship pop up, so you can click on that. And again, this just gives you a different view of all of the information that we just covered on the Fulbright Public Policy page. So this gives you the same information about what the expectation is for your award activity, your award length. It goes into the same detail about the potential host ministries for each country. and just gives you examples of the disciplines that are going to be in a public policy related field. But the reason I brought you here is you can see a little bit more information about some resources that we have. So here's my contact information here. So if ever you had a question, you can either call the number here or you can email fppf@iie. But something new that we have developed for those that are interested in the program is an office hour. And so you can simply click on the link that says join an office hour. And so this will take you to all of the office hours that are scheduled for the rest of the competition. Again, the deadline is September 15th. And so we do combine the Fulbright Public Policy Fellowship with one of our other programs, but the office hour will be held every single Wednesday beginning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. And this is a great place to ask any general questions that you may have about the program. It's in the Zoom format, very casual, where applicants just come ask general questions. It is not recorded, but that's completely fine because every week I cover the same information, and really the discussions are driven by the types of questions that applicants have. So if for some reason you couldn't make the next session, you could always schedule another session for the following week. But when you click on the link, you're simply going to input your name, email address, and then you'll get notification and reminders right before the office hour. So I'm going to hit my back button. Okay, so I'm going to click on the award requirements tab. Again, same information, just a reminder that applicants do not need to contact host ministries to try to secure or advocate their placement. This just goes into a little more detail about the language requirements that we spoke of in the presentation on the prior Fulbright Public Policy page. And this gives you a little more information about the applicant profile, what we're looking for in terms of background. And we also have some helpful links, some archived webinars that may be of interest, and just it gives you a link back to the program page. The next tab is going to be stipend and benefits. And so this gives you a little more information about the stipend, estimated travel and relocation allowances. Let's see what else. The special award benefits. So if you needed a little more information about this, I would suggest coming to the stipend and benefits page. And so finally, I'm back on our homepage of CIES.org. So we do have the fellows that were listed. I'm going to toggle back really quickly on our page here under the highlights tab. You could either look at the information here, or you could search our scholar directory, which is a directory that holds all of our alumni information. And I'll just give you an example of how this works. You have Mary Bailey's information here, but you could simply just copy her information. You'd like to select the link that says Find Fulbright Alumni. So you can simply type it here. You don't even have to hit submit. Well, let's see. You shouldn't have to hit submit, but it's running a little slow. So bear with me for 1 second. Okay, and there's just another view of her information. So again, you can see the scholar's name, their home institution or organization, where they affiliated the ministry, obviously the discipline, their academic year. So if you click on their information, you can see a little more detail of her start and end date. I always recommend, if potential applicants would like to reach out to any of our alum, while we don't have their direct contact information, we do have their home institutional organization. So you could simply, for Purdue, I would suggest looking up their institutional directory and typing her information that way to see if you could find her. You could also reach out to fppf@iie.org. If you had questions for a specific scholar, I could see if I could connect the two of you so that you could speak. But again, this is a great resource in terms of learning more about our alumni, and again, seeing where they affiliated. So here's another way that you could maybe copy and paste this information to get some more information about where she actually, the ministry that she actually affiliated with. So at this time, I'm going to go back to the presentation. So bear with me for 1 second. And so before we go to the Q&A portion, I do want to again point out, if you have any questions at all, or if you would like an advising session, if you could send me an email at fppf@iie.org. We do have the weekly office hours where you can ask any general questions that you have. Those are going to be every single Wednesday, 10 to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. This particular presentation will be uploaded with the link, so you can always refer back here if you have any specific questions. But at this time, if you haven't already typed your questions in the Q&A box, feel free to do so. And I'm going to start reading them now. So bear with me for 1 second. Okay. Let's see. So one of our questions is going to be, can you go through some more examples of what might be considered a public policy related degree? For example, can a Master of Urban and Regional Planning count? So I'm going to refer to you, Susan, but the one thing I will say is, whenever in doubt, again, you definitely want to send your CV or resume to the email address listed, so that I can just review your CV or resume to make an assessment of, number one, will your degree be counted as something that's public policy related, or do you have the appropriate years of experience? So if there's ever any question about whether or not you qualify, please feel free to email the fppf@iie.org. Susan, did you have anything to add to that?
Just to say that we have had candidates with Masters of Urban and Regional Planning participate in the program. And the other thing is too, that if you feel, let's say, maybe your degree isn't specific, or that you've had the public policy experience maybe between your bachelor's degree and your master's degree program, that should be something you need to include and certainly talk about within the essay addressing your career trajectory and the background and skills that you have, which would make you a suitable candidate.
Thank you. So the next question wants to know the total number of applicants that have applied. So while we can't release the specific statistics, the scholar directory that I just walked you through, that's a great way to see all of our fellows that have participated in the program. If you wanted to get a better sense of how many fellows have actually gone to, let's say, Ukraine, that's a great way to access that type of information. The next question, is it okay to have no previous experience in the host region, or would that put one at a competitive disadvantage? Susan, did you want to take that one?
Sure. So there is no prior experience required in the host country. We do have a language proficiency requirement. That is for Peru specifically. So it doesn't put you at a disadvantage if you've never had any prior experience in the host country. And one of the things we like to do within Fulbright is to provide opportunities to those to go abroad who haven't necessarily been able to.
So I do want to point out a couple of things with the application. So there will be a webinar. There should be an archived webinar, even though we've had some changes with the application. But if you wanted a general sense of what the application looked like, you can always create your login to access it there, or we do have an archived webinar where I do a walkthrough of the actual application, just to give you a sense of what it does look like. And I will be offering one probably later on in the recruitment cycle, probably I'd say mid-July. But definitely take a look at the application now to get a sense. We did mention recommenders when we talk through the requirements. So even if you're not yet ready to submit your application, you can register your recommenders. You're simply going to go in, type their information in, their email addresses, and as soon as you do that, even if you're not ready to submit the actual application, A computer-generated link will be sent to them so that they can upload your letter of recommendation at their leisure. And so we typically do recommend to do that pretty soon in the process, just so you can get it out the way and you give your recommenders ample time to submit it. The same thing for your language proficiency. You're going to register your evaluator, and as soon as you register them and putting their name and email address, they'll also receive a computer-generated link so that they can upload that evaluation at their leisure. So again, two things that you'll definitely want to do at the front end of the application process, even if you're not yet ready to submit the application. Let's see. A couple of other questions I'm reading through. Let's see, great question. So should recommenders be professional supervisors, professors, or a mix of both? So I would say any professional reference that can speak towards your professional skills. So someone that can speak towards the professional, both the professional and the personal. So typically what I do see, it's going to be current supervisors, prior supervisors, in some cases, academic professors, maybe individuals that if you've conducted research, individuals that you've collaborated with in the past. So really anyone that can speak towards your professional experience. Susan, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that's great. I mean, you have two letters of reference, and it's great if at least one can speak to the kind of work ethic and can speak to your professional capabilities that you will be doing as a technical specialist, and then one that can speak to your research capabilities, since the research component is also part of the program.
So I do see some very specific questions, and what I would recommend for those, for example, if you want to make sure you're going to be competitive for the program, this is the best fit for you, you have the appropriate credentials, please send an email to fppf@iie.org. But in addition, please send your CV or resume. That way I can do an assessment to help you determine if this is going to be a good fit for you. So for those of you that are asking specific questions, that would be the next course of action, to send your CV and resume to the email address on the screen. Those are all of the questions in the Q&A box. I just want to make sure no one else has any questions. So I'm going to take about a minute or two and just ask you, if you do have any questions, to type them in the Q&A box. I do see some questions in the chat. So again, there were questions about what was the email. So you should see on the screen where it says email us at fppf@iie. So while I'm waiting for additional questions, if there are any, just a reminder that I will be doing the application walkthrough webinar later on in July. Also in July, we're going to have an alumni hour where we feature two former fellows from the program, and it's a great way to better understand their experiences on the ground. We can give you tips about the application, go through the requirements, but speaking with the alum or asking them personalized questions is a great way to better understand what their day-to-day was like, working with the ministry, how they interacted with other fellows, and just their general experience. So that will be posted to our website pretty soon. So we definitely encourage you to attend the live session if you can. And if you can't attend the live session, it will be recorded and archived for you to view at a later time. So I don't see any more questions in the chat. Oh,
sorry, I see one more, Kim. A couple of asking where they can find the recording of this session after.
Sure. So if you're on our main website at cies.org, the quickest way to get there is a search box in the upper right-hand corner. You'll want to type in webinars. So you can see all of our archived webinars there, and then you can see our upcoming webinars. So for this webinar, you will want to look in the archived webinar section. For the upcoming webinar, the application walkthrough, and the alumni hour, those will be listed in the upcoming webinar section. I do have another question. Let's see. how would we determine what time length we should propose? So that's going to be driven based on your availability. If you have the opportunity to take advantage of the full 9 months, that's great. But it's really going to be driven, like I said, by the amount of time that you have to allocate towards the fellowship. I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Susan, I would say maybe about the first month is really going to be you getting acclimated with your new environment, getting settled in. So you really want to take that into account when you're thinking about the duration and just giving yourself enough time to really maximize the experience and work on the independent research project.
Yeah, one thing I would say, so Ukraine, for example, does have a preference for a 9-month length. The other countries are flexible, so that essentially we understand many of our applicants for this award are professionals that may not have the opportunity to take a leave of absence for a longer period, in which case if 4 months is the maximum that you can take, that would be what we suggest that you put in your application. So that's sort of the nature of the award. It's a little bit flexible in that you can determine on your own and your specific schedule what timeline would work for you between the minimum being 4 months and the maximum 9 months. And within that, Ukraine does have a preference for a 9-month grant.
Thank you. I do have another question. This is a really good question. If there's not a country that's a good fit, are there alternate programs which you would recommend to prospective fellows? And I will do that. We will do that. So you have your Fulbright Scholar Core Program where there are different grant opportunities for the same countries that may be a better fit. There are also other public policy awards that may be a better fit within the Fulbright Scholar Core Program. And then we have our Fulbright Student Program that could also be a good fit. So it really all depends on your experience and your credentials, which is why I recommend sending your CV and resume so that I can really get an understanding of your background and experience and recommend the best program for you, even if it's not the Fulbright Public Policy Fellowship. Okay, I did receive some more questions, so bear with me. Okay. So we have a question about specifying the length of time in your application essay. So should you specify or give justification for the length of time you're choosing in your application essay? What would you say to that one, Susan?
Well, I'd say that in your proposal, you're designing a research project, and you would certainly need to demonstrate how you can complete that proposal within the time frame that you are indicating. So in that sense, make sure that it's feasible for the time frame and that what type of impact you expect to have in the host country for the time that you intend to be there. And certainly the longer you can stay, generally the greater impact you can potentially have. And certainly, as Kim touched on earlier, it can take time to get yourself situated, to get settled, to develop the relationship with your host supervisor, for them to establish a level of trust where they can feel comfortable giving you projects and assignments. So it certainly can be an advantage to spend more time in the country if you have it.
Thank you. So we received another question. Are there any exclusions for alumni from the Fulbright Student Program? And so the only, I wouldn't say exclusion is, we do encourage you to apply to other programs. There just needs to be a 2-year waiting period in between the time that you return from your prior grant or fellowship to the time that you're applying for another Fulbright program administered through IIE. So we definitely encourage you to apply for other programs. It just needs to be that 2-year waiting period in between. Okay, so I believe we've answered all questions. I just want to do one more final call. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to type them in the Q&A box, and we will gladly answer. So again, just scrolling through the questions, I just want to remind you one more time, it's a little difficult to answer the specific questions about whether or not you qualify. So the best way to determine is to always send your CV and we can do an assessment that way. I don't have any additional questions that came through. So just one more time before we end today, I just want to remind you of different resources. I highly encourage you to take a look at our website just so you can see the different types of potential ministries that are listed, different requirements, even logging in to the application or creating the login so you can get a sense of what to expect when you're ready to walk through the application. Also a reminder that it's good on the front end to try to register your recommenders as well as your language evaluator, just to give them ample time to submit those documents to us. We do have the office hours every Wednesday. The next one will be this coming Wednesday at 10 a.m. so Eastern Standard. So I encourage everyone to attend if you can. Other than that, thank you so much for joining us today, and feel free to send us any questions that you may have regarding the program. The webinar will be archived and available by this time next week. So thank you again for joining us, and we hope you have a great day. Take care, everyone.
Thanks very much.